Hello, MGTOW. Hello, men. This is Howard Dare. Thanks for stopping by. So, I want to talk about why drama is so important to women. And today's video comes to us as a request from Kate. And here's what she has to say. Dear Mr. Dare, I happened upon your vlog one evening about a month ago. I found your revelations shocking and astounding. You have exhibited how very little I know about my own gender. I am consumed by my burning passion for medical research, specifically the areas of genetics and stem cell. I have spent 20 years of my life being educated to arrive at this point in time. From middle school on, I have only attended private institutions. My family has never had to struggle for tuition, and I have never had to procure loans. I have done this by giving up my life to studies and receiving scholastic scholarships as my reward. I was one of 2 students to achieve perfect scores on the SAT exams. The other student and myself were granted direct admission to a fine medical school. His chosen course of study was orthopedics, surgery. Mine was oncology and genetics. That's the study of cancer. He went on to practice at a major university hospital, and I continued with my education. Upon finishing my PhD, I assumed a position of lead researcher at a university cancer research hospital. I was able to procure funding from the private sector based on my published work. Unlike the days of old when the credo was publish or die, today it is get funded or get fucked. As a result, I am very well compensated, and I have 3 separate research projects in progress. I have always had a predilection for my own gender. It's always been that way, and I have never seen the need to question it. I speak 3 other languages fluently, and I play the guitar, the cello, and the piano. The fact that I remain in research is an indication of my musical abilities. But playing does bring me great pleasure. However, my social or personal life has been a disaster. I am in my mid-30s and have only had 5 relationships. I have always assumed the breakups to be my fault. Perhaps I was too driven. Perhaps I was too demanding. Perhaps I wasn't attentive enough, and so on. A hookup is what happens when a fish takes the bait, and a one-night stand is last week's meal served up as fresh. I am not a feminist. I believe in advancement through achievement. I weigh a whopping 140 pounds in my scrubs and must navigate away from PUAs, part of my new vocabulary list, and others whenever encountered. I have no politics other than wanting the government to stay out of my home and out of my bank account. I do not believe in abortion for ethical reasons. I do not believe in birth control, none hormonal. I believe we, women, are responsible for the way we choose to use our bodies, and it is our obligation and responsibility to protect it. I have been celibate for the past several years, going on the idea that I needed to fix whatever I was doing wrong. Your channel has opened my eyes. Yes, I was at fault, but my fault rested in my ignorance of the behavioral aspects of my own gender. If you've not already done a vlog on the subject, I would like to know, from your standpoint, why drama is so prevalent with my gender. I am sorry to burden you with my background, but I thought if I disclosed some of it, my question would have more meaning. I also hope that my token contribution is of help. I believe you are performing a valuable service, and hopefully this will continue for some time to come. May you have strength always. Kate, PhD, MD. So there, and she says at the end, I am referring you evolutionists to Bert Laglostin. And then the rest of the message cuts out. Now, I checked out Bert, and he's a cancer researcher, but I couldn't really figure out the connection, between evolutionary biology and this particular gentleman. So, and I attribute that to the fact that I am not a super genius, okay? So when super geniuses are talking, I'm kind of like following along and going like, what, huh? Truth is, I'm just a regular run-of-the-mill genius, and I can't keep up with the super geniuses. Okay, so thanks very much for the request and for the generous donation, Kate. I really appreciate it. Now, this question, why is drama so prevalent with women? It's a bigger question than on the surface, and to be honest, I've been building up to this subject over my last few videos. Actually, for a lot of videos, to be honest with you, because it highlights the way that men and women look at the world differently. And your letter, Kate, is very interesting because you're a woman, and yet you have great achievement in medical research and in your studies. This is a little unusual, for a woman. I shouldn't say it that way. The women are very accomplished. They're very capable. They're very smart. They do very well in school. The businesses, the hospitals, the research institutions, they're really anxious to have highly intelligent, highly successful women working for them. But how would you become so accomplished at a very difficult skill if you weren't, in fact, very committed and actually dismissive of drama and emotion, unnecessary emotion? You wouldn't. The child mindset is not really capable of high achievement. It's an emotional mindset. Now, that's just an overview. You also mentioned, Kate, in-group bias, that you've always preferred women. And this is quite natural. Birds of a feather flock together. And it's much deeper than that. It's not just male-female, although the female aspect of in-group bias is very important. It's huge. But it's really quite trivial. In other words, the people who come together in a group, they eventually start to talk the same. They develop the same accent. And if somebody comes into the area who speaks differently, even if it's a person from just the next village over, right, that person is immediately, identified as an outsider. So humans, male and female, develop this huge in-group preference really quickly. And from a child and from a female point of view, male or female, you can understand why group preference is developing. And this is just general group preference. Because the child, pregnant woman, the dependent woman, which most women were going back, or at least they were when they became pregnant, right? So you don't survive. You know what I mean? If the group isn't protecting you and taking care of you and providing you with food as a child, as a dependent, that's it. It's over. And if the group is looking after you and it's a strong group, you're safe, you're secure, you'll make it, as long as you don't do anything stupid. So this tendency to develop in-group preferences is very strong. And the more difficult the circumstances, right, the more likely we are to form these groups. This is part of the reason why women don't value men, because the men have made life so easy and so safe and secure with laws and institutions and government programs. So there's no reason for women to group up with a man. Her life, it's so easy. So you might say, well, that's really cruel, Howard. You're suggesting making life difficult for women so that they will be affectionate towards men. And I agree, that's pretty harsh. But on the other side of that is the destruction of the human race. So now it's not that harsh. It's like, oh, okay, well, it's not that bad. The women have been given too easy of a time from the men within the institutions of civilization. Men always have to compete with each other. It's brutal. And it's personal, and it's way down onto the individual level as well. In other words, like, you can have your best friend for 10 or 20 years, and then a pretty girl moves in next door, and that's it. You're in competition now. It doesn't have to be, but it's significant. And it's all the time. The competing is a part of the male condition. It's not something that they just have to do once in a while. No, it's fundamental to their biology. So understand that to the child, to the dependent, to the pregnant woman, to the woman in a civilization where there's not all these institutions of freedom and security, being part of the group becomes a huge deal. It's life and death. So let's also consider, so do you understand that within the group, the relationships between the people within the group become the most important thing? In other words, the child that's in the city that's being taken care of, by its parents or by the state, it doesn't have to be a good hunter. It doesn't have to be strong enough to kill a wild animal. It doesn't have to have the skills, to slaughter it and to butcher it. It doesn't have to have the ability to fight for its life on a regular basis. This type of behavior would stress them out too much, would make them sick, right? And to the man, it's like, oh yeah, I have to do that 3 or 4 times a day. That's nothing. So a whole different way of interacting with the world develops for somebody in the group. Their way of getting along in the world is their relationships, getting along with other people. They still have to be productive, but they have to maintain their place in the group. And this other way of interacting with the world, a masculine way, a builder who, has to get along with people, but the primary focus of his day, of his time, is his job and his effectiveness at his job. So He doesn't have to develop all these interpersonal, emotional skills. And he doesn't. He becomes grizzled. He becomes accomplished, capable, strong. But he doesn't come, politically savvy. He doesn't become emotionally connected to other people. It's too much work, to be honest with you. Either you've got this logical planning way of looking at the world where you can now build a skyscraper or a bridge and analyze these problems, or you're concerned with, the relationships between people, who's getting along with who, how this person feels, reading their emotions in their expressions. That's your way. That's a different way of interacting with the world. And you can't really do both as your primary focus. It's like, looking at a picture where you're looking at the foreground or you're looking at the background. But you can't really look at both at the same time. So, I believe that this is a huge part of the difficulty that men are encountering. So, also consider, my videos on the use of language, the way that men and women use language differently. Men are using the language generally, okay? And this is where Kate's, request is very interesting based on her accomplishment. Men are mostly using language to describe the physical world, to describe processes to overcome obstacles within the physical world. So they develop things like mathematics, geometry, even music. Women, for the most part, are using language to describe their emotional state, their feelings. Think about it. Why would a child, a dependent, why would a pregnant woman, get into an argument about how many beams are needed to hold up the roof? She's not doing the calculation. She might look at it and say, it doesn't look very stable. She might do that, but she's not making those calculations. So she's not talking in that language. Can women do so? Of course they can do so. They're human beings. They're incredibly they can be incredibly intelligent and capable. But they're mostly dominant, but mostly their feelings are coming up and they're describing their feelings. Do men have feelings? Of course men have feelings. Do men have emotions? Of course they do. Do they lose control of them from time to time? Yes. Are they overwhelmed by them? Yes. But it's not the primary focus of their life. In other words, if a man is emotionally upset, it's probably for a very good reason. He may not know what it is, especially if he's a young man in difficult circumstances. But if he can make certain changes in his life, those emotional problems will probably resolve themselves. In other words, if you take that man and you put him in a competitive, healthy, productive environment with structure, you take out the emotional stress and abuse that's coming his way, you let him have a little accomplishment, you let him be able to take a breath, he'll sort out his other problems. It's only when you put the men in these emotional situations that they really start abusing themselves and harming themselves. So understand these two different ways of looking at the world. One, male-based, overcoming physical obstacles. Your emotions are an indication of your physical state. In other words, you're going to need food for the winter. You're not finding any food, so you're incredibly nervous. You find a bunch of food, you're no longer nervous. The male use of language. Now look at the female use of language, and as I said, this is not absolute. The child's use of language. All they can do is express their feelings and hope that someone around them cares enough about them, or they can manipulate the people around them to do something about their feelings. Now, does this sound familiar? I mean, this is exactly what a feminist is, right? This is how I feel about the situation. What are you going to do about it? This is what a professional victim is. These are my feelings. You have to do something about it. There's a problem within the group. In other words, if you don't do this, there's going to be some serious problems for you within the group. Because, the men, I know this seems like I'm not directly addressing the subject, but I'm getting there. I'm going to have to do a few videos on this subject. The women love drama because this is their way of interacting with the world. This is how they get things done. When there's a problem at work, they go to their boss and they say, this is the situation and it's making me uncomfortable. And it's an emotional communication. It's not like a man coming forward and saying, this is what's bothering me. If we can do something about this, I can, be much more effective at my work. In other words, the man is also very solution-oriented, even though his feelings just, can prompt his behavior and the circumstances. He's solution-oriented. And his solutions are based in the physical world. So it's this very practical consideration, right? What a pleasure it is to deal with a capable, intelligent, non-emotional man, right? Whatever the problem is, it's like, well, okay, I think that we can solve that, and I think this is how we can do it. And it's like, yeah, I think that'll work. So no drama. But, and then we're talking about physical work, right? No drama, and then a lot of physical work, as opposed to a female child way of looking at the world, which is, these are my feelings. There's not much I can do about the physical world. I better express these feelings to someone and see what we can get done with their help. It's a drama-based way of looking at the world. It's an emotionally based way of looking at the world. Even the way we use language. The young men really can't understand this. Like they're given this propaganda of egalitarianism, right? So like here's this really short person who doesn't go to school and likes to overeat and sleep late, never read a book in their life. Here's another tall, healthy, strong, fit person who watches their diet, who exercises, who does everything they're supposed to do every day, And you put these two people next to each other and you say, these two people are the same. There's no difference. And it's like, so the short, lazy person who's never even opened up a book, a day in their life says, yeah, that's right. I'm just like, the class valedictorian, and, I'm just like the highest achieving person on the campus, and I'm just like the strongest and the most fit and the best looking person in the company, and I'm the most intelligent and well-spoken person, in the area, just like them. We're the same. And it's like, no, you're not. You're completely different. So the young man is sold this line. See, it's actually a denial of the physical world. It's actually saying, look, here's two people that are completely different, that have completely different set of skills, completely different set of accomplishments, completely different character. One of them is honest and hardworking, truthful, overcomes obstacles. The other one, fault-finding, emotional, blaming, troublesome, aggressive, hostile, very unaccomplished. So you really are taking the accomplished person down, and you really are lifting the unaccomplished person way up. In other words, drama and emotion are the tools that stupid, weak, lazy people can use to tear down honest, hardworking, quality people. Now, does this mean all people that are dependents, are lazy, worthless people? No, of course not. Not at all. But this mindset has been used to tear down the good quality people within our civilization. And women are not immune to this, right? So as women are, going out and basically accusing men of every crime under the sun and using that sympathy to, enhance their position, it's undermining the very credibility, the very basis on which achievement and accomplishment and overcoming obstacles are based. It's saying we're going to replace your logic, your reason, your measurements with our subjective emotional interpretations of the world. And if you don't go along with it, we're going to pitch a fit. And we're going to knock you out of the in-group. See, this is all connected. It's an emotional interpretation of the world because the other interpretation is extremely difficult. Men are a little better at it. Men are a lot better at it. Women, children, dependents, they have a very emotional way of looking at the world, and you can understand why. The men, certain types of men, very practical. Skilled, accomplished, practiced, disciplined. These are the skills, that build, that get things done, but they're not emotional. So as this dependent, you really, really need the group. Do you see what I mean? So it's like you better have the same accent. You better cut your hair the same way. You better wear the same types of clothes. You better not do anything that is not part of the group. And the coin of the realm, the way that these people are going to interact and view the world is through their emotions. That's why they love drama. It's how they interpret the world. And that's why men are having such a hard time. Because what do we care about the feelings? They're completely incidental to the job. In other words, the man who can, put his feelings aside is going to be the best brain surgeon, at least while he's performing surgery, if you understand what I mean. So this is why women love drama. This is why men will revert to drama when men are getting in arguments over trivial, meaningless things. It's usually because there's some source of frustration in their life, something that they're, not able to get past, some accomplishment, some achievement that they have to achieve and they can't get there. And they're just expressing their frustration. They're acting out in this kind of emotional way. So can there be women that are really disciplined and successful and capable and smart? Yes. And I believe that someone like Kate is a fine example of this. Someone like Ayn Rand is a fine example of this, right? And can there be men that are just emotional idiots that can't get anything done, that just get tossed around like a ship on the ocean? by their emotions and by the circumstances around them? Absolutely. Could it even be that the people around them want to keep them in that state so that they can control them and manipulate them? Yes. Could it even be that the people around them keep the men in this emotional state so that they can manipulate them, and that the people doing it are not inherently evil or doing it intentionally? They're just doing it because, they're sick, they're old, they need help, they're desperate. Everything about their world is an emotional expression. Do you see? So now the man who's trying to get out of this emotional way of looking at the world so he can be productive and capable and overcome his own weaknesses, he keeps getting pulled back into this emotional way of looking at the world. It's the drama. It's the expression of this drama. And an expert manipulator, you can use it to control everything. This is what the older matriarch does as well, like the older mother when she's not getting her way, It's like, well, there's going to be some arguments coming up at this holiday dinner. And you can understand why. The woman she's not going to get into a physical fight. She's not going to go out and solve a problem. And I don't mean that like all women. That's crazy. I'm talking about a general trend that the female nature and the social circumstances create. They create this opportunity for this type of behavior. And the lower class women and the lower class men, they take it. They go down that road. And if you're hanging around them, that's the way they want you to go. They want to drag you down that road as well. So these are just some of the reasons why women tend towards drama and emotional expressions and outbursts, but not exclusively. Highly intelligent women, no, not so much. And men are not, these paragons of, intellect. They lose control of their temper and their emotions also, right? But it is just this basic way of going through the world. And it represents this kind of fundamental difference in the way that men and women look at the world, that they use language, that they interact with other people. And you can understand why. No one's going to feel sorry for a full-grown, strong man. They're going to say, go out there, get a job, get your food, but a pretty woman that's crying, that's upset, or a mother, right? It's going to be like, well, she can't go out there and hunt. She can't do those things. So we're going to feel sorry for her. We're going to help. We're going to see what we can do. We're going to acknowledge these differences. And you can understand that this type of thinking evolved, thousands and thousands of years ago, perhaps tens of thousands of years ago, right? In this difficult hunter-gatherer situation. But we're no longer there, are we? The woman is just as capable of driving a car as a man. She's just as capable of going around the city and getting things done as a man. So I hope this offers some insight as to why women love drama and men love work. And, it's related to my other videos as well. And I'm going to talk about this subject some more because the in-group bias that's created, with the emotional women and the children, the dependent class. And then they become this victim class, which uses emotion and manipulation to get their way over a working, productive, virtuous class of people who have to have virtues in order to get by. Now, I've discussed this before, what is virtue? And I don't have time to go into it in this video. But in my interpretation, it is the set of skills that you need to have in order to have a good, strong, productive life as a human being, right? And that's logic, that's reason, that's capability, that's integrity, that's strength. And it's the exact opposite set of circumstances that someone's going to want with an in-group preference for emotions and for drama. And when these two types of people come together, there's this fundamental conflict. So this is what we're seeing, between the men and the women, like going down different evolutionary paths. So I'm going to leave it at that for now. This is a long video. Thank you, Kate, for the generous donation and the great topic request. I'm going to do a few more videos on this subject because I feel it's a very important subject. So let me know what you think about this in the comments section below. Please like, share, comment, subscribe, donate, and join me again, Howard Dare, as I plan to have more content for you. Thank you, MGTOW.